Memphis. April 3, 1968. A thunderstorm was working through the city. Sheets of rain, lightning over the Mississippi. King was not scheduled to speak. He was 39 and exhausted. But the sanitation workers of Memphis had come out in the rain, black men who hauled garbage for poverty wages. They had buried 2 colleagues crushed in a malfunctioning truck. They came in the storm. And so King came too. He preached for nearly 40 minutes without notes. Near the end, something came over him that witnesses described as unlike anything they had seen before. He said, "I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land." He sat down. The crowd held what they had just heard. He was shot dead on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel the following evening, April 4, 1968. How does a 26-year-old reluctant pastor, frightened, thrust into leadership he never sought, become the man who could say those words? The answer lives in a kitchen, in Montgomery, at midnight. The hardest truth about King is one his legend has largely smoothed over. He was terrified. Not occasionally, not in private, terrified repeatedly in the middle of the work. The phone calls came at all hours. Voices promising to blow up his house, to kill his wife, to kill his infant daughter. The threats were not abstract. Within weeks, a bomb would land on his porch. By 1963, he had survived a stabbing in Harlem and multiple bombings, and years of FBI surveillance that J. Edgar Hoover directed personally. Hoover called him the most dangerous man in America. He tapped his phones. He sent an anonymous letter urging him to end his life. King kept the letter. After the Voting Rights Act, King turned against Vietnam and toward poverty. By 1966, a Gallup poll found 75% of Americans viewed him unfavorably. Former allies grew quiet. He kept going. He was exhausted, the movement fracturing around him, planning a Poor People's Campaign in Washington when the Memphis sanitation strike called. He came, he preached, he did not leave. To understand how this man could carry any of it, go back to Atlanta, Auburn Avenue, 1929. Michael King Jr. was born January 15, 1929, into a community his family had helped build. His grandfather had founded Ebenezer Baptist Church. His father was its pastor. The church was the center of gravity, not just a place to worship God, but to organize, educate, and resist the segregation that surrounded them on every side. The boy who would rename himself Martin Luther King Jr., after the German reformer, heard his father preach and heard the deacons argue theology after service. He heard the spirituals. He absorbed the church the way a field absorbs rain. He was also a child of Jim Crow. When he was 6, a white friend's parents told their son he could no longer play with Martin. He later wrote that he resolved that day to hate every white person, and that this was his first lesson in what hatred costs the person who carries it. He skipped 2 grades, entered Morehouse College at 15, read voraciously, Thoreau, Gandhi, Niebuhr. Eventually, he went to Crozer Theological Seminary, then to Boston University for a doctorate. He was building a theology that could hold both Christ and a picket line. In Boston, he met Coretta Scott, a musician from Alabama. They married in 1953. He accepted the call to Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery. He was 25, newly married, and ready, he thought, for a quiet pastoral life. December 1, 1955. Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a Montgomery city bus and was arrested. The black community had been watching for the right person at the right moment. They found both. Community leaders called a citywide boycott. They needed a leader, someone new enough to carry no political enemies. They turned to the young pastor. King accepted. He wrote later that he had not had time to think it through, and that if he had, he might have said no. 50,000 black residents walked, carpooled, and rode mules to work for over a year, refusing to board the buses. The white response was to escalate. King was arrested on a traffic charge, the first of 29 arrests across his lifetime. The phone calls intensified, night after night, voices promising death. He could not shield his family. He could not pretend the threats were empty. And in the quiet of those weeks, He began to wonder whether he was the right man for what this had become. January 27, 1956, midnight. A voice on the phone had promised that if he did not leave Montgomery within 3 days, they would blow up his house and kill his family. Coretta and his infant daughter Yolanda were asleep down the hall. He went to the kitchen. He made coffee. He sat down. By his own account, he was close to giving up. Not on principle, but humanly. He was 26. He was frightened in the way a man is frightened when the danger is real. He prayed, not the kind he preached, a confession. He told God he was afraid, that he had nothing left, that he could not go on alone. Then, by his own account, as he described in Stride Toward Freedom and retold for the rest of his life, he heard something, an inner voice, quiet and certain. It said, "Stand up for righteousness, stand up for justice, stand up for truth, and lo, I will be with you, even until the end of the world." He did not describe a vision. He described hearing the voice of Jesus, as clearly, he said, as he had ever heard anything, answering his fear not with safety, but with a command and a promise. 3 nights later, a bomb landed on his front porch. Coretta and Yolanda were inside, not injured. King arrived home to find armed men in the street, ready to respond. He stood on the porch and told them to go home, to put down their weapons, that they would win this with love, or not at all. The man on that porch was not the same man who had sat at the kitchen table 3 nights before. Something had settled in him that fear could no longer fully unsettle. Not the absence of fear, but something underneath it, holding it. What followed was 12 years that reshaped the legal and moral architecture of the most powerful nation on earth. The bus boycott ended in victory in December 1956. The Supreme Court ruling Montgomery's bus segregation unconstitutional. King had led the effort for 381 days. He was 27 years old. He went to Birmingham in 1963. From a jail cell, writing on scraps of newspaper, he produced one of the defining moral documents of the century. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. On August 28, 1963, 250,000 people gathered at the Lincoln Memorial. King set aside his prepared speech midway and dreamed aloud. He said, "I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood." The Civil Rights Act in 1964. The Nobel Peace Prize that December, he was 35, the youngest laureate in the award's history. He gave the prize money to the movement. The Voting Rights Act in 1965 won on the Edmund Pettus Bridge after troopers attacked 600 peaceful marchers on Bloody Sunday. And then the years that complicate the story. He turned to Vietnam and poverty and lost most of America's goodwill. Younger voices called nonviolence naive. His 1967 book argued that civil rights without economic justice was an incomplete bargain. 75% disapproval. He made the argument anyway. On the evening of April 4, 1968, King stepped onto the second-floor balcony of the Lorraine Motel. He was going to dinner. He was shot at 6:01 and died within the hour. He had told the Mason Temple crowd the night before that he had been to the Mountaintop, that he had seen the other side. He would not cross over. What he left behind was not only a movement or a body of law, it was the record of a frightened young pastor who chose to receive what he believed God had said to him, alone at a kitchen table at midnight, and then stood up and did not stop standing. Most of us will not lead a movement. We will not face a bomb on the porch. But the question at the kitchen table is not unique to him. Every life arrives, sooner or later, at some version of that midnight. A moment when the cost is clear and the outcome is not. When the people we love are asleep down the hall and we are alone with what we said we believed. What do you do at the kitchen table at midnight when no one is listening and the work is too big for you?